Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another meeting of the Research Triangle PowerShell User Group. My name is Mike Kanakis, and tonight we are excited to be talking about the PS App Deploy Kit with Kevin Greer. But before we get to Kevin, let me bring in my co-host, Phil. Phil Bossman. Hey, Phil, how are you tonight? How
I'm
are
doing
you
well.
doing?
I'm looking good.
And
I'm doing well.
Phil, how did you find our esteemed speaker tonight? How did
Well,
we run into
actually,
Miss?
Kevin, I was super excited about Kevin's talk in that I gave a presentation on the intro and all about PowerShell application deployment toolkit at the summit this past May, and Kevin was an attendee at that talk, and then came up after and said, "Hey, I want to tell you about all the things that I've done with PSADT." I said, "You know what? That's a great idea, and you should talk for our user group." And so with no further ado, I want to welcome Kevin because I'm excited to that this is a user group, and this is exactly what I want to encourage so much within the community is that people have great ideas, people want to share those ideas, and in those ideas encourage others and want to encourage others to participate and bring out ideas that are people work with, and they do it every day, and so it's a good concept. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Hey,
Gonna be
Kevin, how
fun.
you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
All right, thanks for sharing tonight.
Oh,
So what did you? So real quick, what did you think of Summit, and how did Phil do demoing?
Bill did excellent in demoing. It
Now
was
I know
a
you're lying. Now I know you're lying, but that's okay. No, I'm kidding.
try catch.
um,
Yeah, no, it was a really good. No, Phil did a good job of presenting on the PSADT. Definitely really enjoyed it. He covered it very well. I was happy to see that was a topic summit. That was one of the most exciting things I've seen when I was looking at all the sessions that were available this year, and so that was the first on my list to see. Um, but I think it was Wednesday or Thursday he presented on that. So um, I like the opportunity just to show him afterwards to what I have done with the PowerShell Output Toolkit, how I've automated it, put automation around it, how I use it with SCCM. It's a lot of neat things. So I just appreciate Phil for asking me if I would present on that. Um, so that's where we're at.
sure.
Yeah, I think
So
the best part about it was that, PowerShell is this thing where everybody can contribute in their own way, and that's exactly what it is. And so people are using PowerShell application deployment toolkit in their own unique ways, and that's what I want to encourage so much. And I even know there's some other people online right now who've used PSADT for their own purposes, and they've written their own custom modules for that. And so want to encourage just people to participate and engage with the community, and we'll see. Actually, I'm excited to see because I haven't seen this entire thing, so I'm looking forward to it.
so you guys have jumped ahead of me here already. So I was just going to say, so I'm an identity management engineer. For the people at home that don't know the app deploy toolkit, like what is it? And Kevin, how long you been doing this? Tell us a little bit about you and your usage of the deploy kit. Like, give us set the stage for us of what we're talking about and what your experience level is.
Well, I've been in the industry for 18 years. I've been a system administrator for the last 4 or 5, maybe 6 years or so. It's kind of all blending in together. Most of that time I've been working with SECM package deployments and other automation within my infrastructure. And one of the hardest things with package deployment is, well, you write a script or a batch to install using the install command of some application, and hopefully it has silent parameters. Then potentially you have to do something before you install it and after you install it. And then when I found the app deploy toolkit, it solved all of our problems. It basically streamlines the entire process for deploying applications in one neat framework with tons of tools that supports logging, and it's extremely useful, and it's became an integral part of my day-to-day operations In fact, within our environment, we deploy every application we have using the toolkit, no matter what it is, how small it is. Even if it's not an application at all, we'll deploy um, settings, registry edits. We'll use the toolkit for that because it has built-in functions to handle registry extremely well. Even it has functionality to run applications or run executables as the logged on user, which it does some neat things in the background with this task scheduler within the user's registry. So I don't know if I went off on tangent there, but hopefully that answers some of the question.
So now you're saying you're saying this is a Swiss Army knife toolkit. You use it for everything. It just makes life easier. So essentially, if you're watching at home and you're an admin and you're struggling with deploying software, this is really something that could make their lives a lot easier. Right? So much so that you've deployed it for every application. It's just this is my go-to tool. So that's really cool. So I'd love to see what you got to share with us tonight. So let's get it started. We'll hand it over to you.
All
Thanks
right.
again for sharing tonight, and we'll hand it over to you. Take it away.
All right. Well, first thing I want to do, I know Phil did a wonderful session at Summit on this, but I'm not sure if everyone here had a chance, opportunity to see that session. So I wanted to do quickly is kind of give a brief introduction to the App Deploy Toolkit, kind of show you what it does, how it's structured, and then kind of go into from there what I do and how I um, leverage it in my environment and how I apply automation around it to help us deploy applications all in a standard way. So every application that we deploy, it all has the same naming conventions, the same structures, the same extensions are all applied to every application, whether we use the extensions or not for the application, but it's always available. All right. So let me just first jump in here. I put up here. I do use Twitter. I don't tweet or X, whatever you're going to call it now, very often, if at all. I usually just follow. But if you do want to get in contact with me or send me a message, this is my ID and email address. You can send me contact me there as well. All right. So let me first open up the web page and then open up my other screen. All right, so the website where you can access or get the app deploy toolkit. This is it, ps appsdeploytoolkit.com. And we'll go ahead and go to here. You can find documentation about it, community forums. It's a free open source community built product tool. Donations, they do accept donations. But let's go to downloads.
Do you know who maintains this?
I do not know the individuals who maintains this.
I mean,
I
is it a company led thing, or is it
no,
like a
no,
couple of individuals?
it's a
A
few
couple
individ
individuals.
yeah.
Cool.
I did see those. I don't know their names. Apologies for that. They did do a presentation several months ago when they kind of updated this to the latest three dot. What was it?
3.9. It was 3.8 for a
Yeah,
long, long
yeah.
time,
It
and
was
they finally brought it back.
3.8.4. Yeah, for a long time. Then they brought it back with 3.9. Had a few bugs in there, and now we're sitting smoothly at 3.9.3. But yeah, it's a community product, and hopefully the contributors to this continue contributing to this because for me and probably many other individuals that use this um, in their infrastructure or deploying applications, it's very integral. So going to their website, going to the downloads, we go to their GitHub page, and then we can download the latest version, the zip file, this zip file here. So we'll download that. I'm going to close my browser for now. I'm going to go on to my next section here. So after you download it, this is same for all kinds of downloads online. Before you extract it, you really need to go to the properties of that zip file and unblock it. If you extract it before you do that, every single file within the toolkit is blocked or not trusted. So it's easiest is to do it once on the zip file, then extract it. Then when you extract it, this is what you get with the download for the toolkit. A PDF of all the documentation. It's very robust. It's very involved. Gives good examples. It goes through everything about the toolkit. Talks about all the functions, all the environment variables that it sets up. There's a folder for examples. I'm not really interested in that right now. But what really is important with this download is the toolkit folder. This is really all we need. So if I open that up, this is the toolkit, everything in here. So if we're deploying an application, everything here goes with that application. And then you run deploy application.exe, which silently runs deploy application.ps1. The installation files for your application would go into the files folder. Oops, don't drag. Support files, you can put additional files in here. Not necessary to put anything in here really, but I do use the support files folder for usually it's metadata and JSON files that get copied in here when I automate creating an application. And then the main folder, the app deploy toolkit folder, contains all the main files for all the functions. The app deploy toolkit main.ps1 file is fairly large, contains every function that we can run in the toolkit. There is icon file, a banner file, and now these banners and icons you can replace these with your own. So you can have so when it runs, you have your own company branding as well. Um, and it supports the ability to add extensions to it. So if I open up the app deploy toolkit extensions PS1 file, and this is just fresh, this is just downloaded, so nothing is really in here. One second.
Kevin, I got a quick question for you. So I'm not an application deployment guy, and I was just wondering, is app deploy written as something that you would add on and use in SCCM, or you just use it to deploy to build packages and you deploy with whatever method you want?
You can deploy with whatever method you want.
Yeah,
So we use SCCM to deploy it, and really all we're doing is we're taking the folder, the toolkit, the install files within the toolkit for that application, and then within our SCCM application, which is basically it's just all the settings and configurations for that deployment. We the command we give that application a command to run, and that command is always going to be the same command for all applications because it's going to be the toolkit. It's going to be the
gotcha.
app deployed up PS1. So it's no matter what method you use for deploying applications, you can use the toolkit. And I actually built my own tool I use when I'm testing applications. So I'm testing my development of a new application. I have a tool I use that will install it, run the toolkit for me without actually having to run it through SCCM, because there's a whole lot involved with that. In order to deploy application from SCCM, you need to first create the package, distribute the content to all distribution points, then deploy it, wait for your computer to catch up with all the policies. It takes a long time to do testing through that way. So I simulate that whole process using uh, running PowerShell as system account, which I launched using PSExec. And then from there, I can run directly the PS deploy application PS1, and that basically simulates the whole process that SCCM would perform when installing an application.
Is there something that will validate what you I'm thinking desired state configuration, but something within this package that would say, yes, this is now what we want before a flip is switched and it goes into production. You might you might install it and deploy it, but something that looks over everything in the deployment and says this is all good and the way it should be.
You mean
Uh,
in how the commands and script and the file structure is all set up?
Yes.
Yes. Not within the toolkit itself. I That is something I do external to the toolkit to stage and set up the toolkit for an application where it puts all the files in the right location, gives everything the correct name, um, and that's really about all there is to it. But that's something I want to show too. I want to share that how I'm doing that. But within the toolkit itself, no, I don't think so. I mean, I suppose you could add some code within the. I'll get to it later. The pre-installation task to do some validation before it runs. That would be something you could add as a custom extension. Write that code to however your environment needs that to be. You can do that. You could definitely do that. It's definitely it's you can mold it
Okay.
to however
I
you
s-
need to for your environment or whatever your needs are. So so custom functions in this app deploy toolkit extension PS1 file. Any custom functions you would add here in your in in this script. Um, you can add it directly in here. I'll show you how I do it. I don't put all my functions directly in here. I load them from an external file or a folder, and I'll show you that in a little bit here. But if you have if you only needed a few commands that's your extensions, you can just easily just add them here, and there's no issue, no problem. You can do that. All right, so let me go back out of here, back here. All right, first thing I want to do is I'm going to run deploy application on PS1 as an example. It's not going to install anything for me, but it will actually run through the whole script. And I'm going to run that under, let me clear this. I'm going to run that here within this PowerShell console running as the system account. Okay. And I'm running the PS1 directly. I'm not running the exe. This is so I can see on screen on the console everything that the toolkit goes through and logs. So it minimizes everything. This is all default behavior, and it gives you option to defer this deployment. So if you give your users a choice to defer, they can do that, or they can continue. This is You can set this where they don't have any option to defer. You can also tell have a prompt that shows applications that need to close before the install runs, and it'll close those applications for you. So hit continue. And I already, for this example here, I already replaced the banner with my company's logo, my company's icon. So it's showing that. So all of our users see the same banner, the same Windows is whenever we deploy any application, whether it's update a new application or anything. And this is optional. Uh, a window that shows up at the end of the installation that we typically just comment out. We don't do this, but if you wanted to give your users a message after their application is installed, then you can definitely do that. All right, that's the default behavior in there. And I was showing you talking about extensions. Let's go ahead and take a look at how I'm doing that. So this folder is my custom toolkit for my environment. And I'll go through here these folders. So let me go into the app deploy toolkit main folder, and I added a folder extensions. Inside the extensions, I have all my extensions that do different things. Some of the big things that we do is we will WIM all of our install files if it's a large application like AutoCAD, anything Autodesk that's multiple gigs. We'll compress that into a WIM file, and then within the toolkit, we mount that WIM file to run the installation, and then do cleanup after the installation and dismount it, and then we're all clean. I also have some logic in here, some functions for chocolatey packages. This is not creating chocolatey packages. This is installing um, applications from the chocolatey repository, and I will show you that a little bit here too, and just um, various other extensions. One thing we get a lot of complaints about is if a user is presenting within Teams or PowerPoint. So I added some functionality within the extensions that will first test if a user is in a Teams presentation or PowerPoint presentation, and I also added it for Zoom as well. And what it does is, if they're in that presentation, the installation will just gracefully exit. They wouldn't even know it ran at all. And then with 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 ACCM, it'll just try again installing later, and then it'll install it without giving the user any interruption. So we do that for some of our applications, which makes it a little bit nice, and we don't get complaints from users that, hey, I was presenting just whatever, and this installation just started kicking on my screen. I couldn't stop it, even though I already deferred it. All right, so let's see, test MS Teams, that's that function. And I don't see my function for Zoom. I do have a function for testing Zoom. It should be test Zoom. I'm gonna move on for so I'm not sure about that, but I do have that functionality. All right, so also within the toolkit, it has a help script. So I'm gonna run that. It's within that app deploy toolkit, the main folder. And what it does, it brings up a GUI of all the available functions within the toolkit. These are the common functions that they provide for you to use when you're installing applications, and even extensions will show up in here too. So test MS Teams, I have that function. As long as you have help within your function, it'll show up in here within this list, even though it's not built into the toolkit, it's built into your extensions. So I have the get chocolate package. That's a function I have available in here. So it shows up in here as well. It's an extension. But one thing is different about these functions. For instance, new folder, and there is remove folder or and remove file. What reason these are here? Instead of using new item, remove item that you typically would, use these functions as built into toolkit instead, because behind the scenes these functions do validations for your files. They'll catch exceptions, and they log everything that happens within that function to the log file for this whole installation. So it's definitely a good idea to use these functions instead of the standard PowerShell functions within the toolkit. That's true. Outside the toolkit, use what's right.
There's a question from the chat here, Kevin. When somebody was asking about, I'm not sure who it was now. Scott was asking about the deferrals in SCCM and how does it interface? How do you work, because you're using SCCM and deferrals with the deferral within SCCM and the deferral within your package? How do you kind of play that and juggle that world?
Well, if we apply a deferral within the toolkit and a user defers the application installation, it shows up in SCCM as a failed installation. And but it throws a certain error code, so we recognize that, okay, this application failed. Here's the error code that we see, so we know if that user deferred the application or not. So really, the deferment, it's in the toolkit. but it's just how SCCM handles it. Doesn't SCCM does not gracefully handle it as as it's going to try again later. It just shows it as it failed installation, which is true. It didn't install, even though it tried to push it. The toolkit just said, nope, I'm not installing. I'm exiting here. Here's the error code. SCCM. SCCM logs it. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think I think it does. It just, how are you guys handling some of those deferrals? And so
Yeah.
you're just returning other things with you're making assumptions based upon the recurring code of the package itself,
Right.
even though it didn't work. And so then hey, we'll just try it again based upon your other installation criteria and not using the almost like built-in deferrals within SCCM itself.
Right.
Is that
And
correct?
yeah, there is no built-in deferrals in SCCM itself. It doesn't have that functionality, but that's all within the toolkit itself. But the deferrals, you can actually specify how many deferrals you want the user to be granted. Typically, we do 3 as a default, and you can specify how many days they have to defer before they use up all the deferments, or they hit the expiration date, and then the installation will not give them the option to defer. It just forces the installation. And
I
so
got you.
yeah, so that's something that's very useful, because if a user is prompted with an installation in the middle of something important, they can defer it, and it'll install later. But a lot of times we'll get users that will use all the deferments and they complain that they their application was closed. So there is that too. We played around with adjusting it to give them users a limited deferments for some applications, but we've abandoned that. We have not used that in several years.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Keep on going.
All right, so that's the help um, console for the toolkit and all the functions that are built into it. Now, the toolkit itself has dozens more functions than this. This is just what they expose in this help file. All right, let's go on. All right, so I'm going to show you a few screenshots. So, oops, close that. In SCCM, on our SCCM server, we will run this command. This is our internal developed module, and we've applied lots of functionality within that module. One of our biggest tools that we use is creating applications. So we have a function. We prefix it with our name. So this is a new EXP application. And just to show you the parameters a little bit cleaner, I'm splatting them here. So within the rest of this demonstration, I'm going to be using Notepad++ to deploy the package. It's very small, easy to install, and it's fast. So we have a lot of required parameters for creating an application. So the vendor name, the version of the application, and these are all validated. The type of application, in this case, is package. There's also other types that we can set up as well. The mode base, the other option is update, and the staging folder. This is the folder that contains the installation files for this application or whatever we're installing. I'm not showing you that folder, but this is the name of the folder. The script or this function knows where to go to grab that name, and then it copies everything down. Next, before it runs, we have a prompt that's going to give us a preview of what's going to happen. This is helpful to us so we don't mess anything up. We don't want to accidentally create the wrong application or accidentally create a new vendor in SCCM because it's a pain about to clean up after if you do mess it up. So it gives us the opportunity to kind of preview everything. The reason this is a screenshot is just so I have to protect server names, addresses, and paths, and so forth. So that's why those are just masked out. And then it's showing what would happen when the application is created in SCCM. It shows us the name. If I had a description set, I'm not using that parameter, and it also will set the icon if the icon is found within the staging folder. and then it will time out 30 seconds if you do not click yes or no. And that's just a safety measure. So, 2 hours from now, I can't go ahead and accidentally create an application that someone else already created. All right, so similar, different parameters. This is using Chocolatey to deploy Notepad++. Reason I have version set to 000 is because this application, this will always install the latest version of Notepad++ because it's pulling it down from the Chocolatey repository. And I am added the skip configuration manager steps parameter. So that's why down here you don't see those previews. You just see a warning saying that, hey, you skipped that. Is that what you want to do? All right. And then the last one about WIM files. Similar to other parameters, I could not run this live because it will show the address or the path for the application. Let's see, in this one, create WIM package is a new parameter I'm using here, so I added that, and I added the skip verify. So we're not seeing the option to click yes or no. This will just actually skip that whole section and just run through it. And what is behind the scenes, this is using a program called WIMlib. And what that is doing, that's taking the contents within the staging folder and compressing that to a WIM file. And then and that becomes part of the application inside the toolkit. And then we extract that when we're install, and clean it up afterwards. And I'll show you what that looks like in a little bit here. All right, so I'm going to run this on my server. All right, so running the new EXP application function with the vendor Notepad++, the name Notepad++ is the same, they're the same version. This is going to be a package. It's the base installation. I'm skipping the verify. I'm skipping configuration manager steps because I don't actually want to create this in SCCM right now. And I'm keeping the staging folder. That is so it doesn't delete the staging folder after it creates the application. And this is so I can continue running the demo. Running that, it takes a couple seconds, it's done. So let's go take a look at what it did.
So you literally made a package outside of SCCM for this particular example, right?
So the way SCCM works, the package is not in SCCM, it's actually a content folder outside of
Right.
SCCM. And then SCCM grabs that content and copies it to distribution points. So, but in this example right here, I'm not actually linking it to SCCM itself. I'm just creating the content that you would see if it was an SCCM application. All right, so for this, you run that. It's going to have to copy it locally first, and then it'll open up. It takes like 20 seconds for it to copy over, although it does feel like a lot longer. There we go. It behaved. So this is the folder that was created. It created the folder with our naming convention, with our vendor, our vendor name, the app name, the version, and this metadata at the end, a P for application, P for package, B for base, and 001 is the revision number. So if I want to create another Notepad++ application with the same name, it would increment my script would increment that application to 002. All right, let's take a look at these folders in here that came with the toolkit. This is all the same that I showed you a little while ago with extensions. But what I forgot to show you, or let me open up the extensions and how I'm loading those extensions. In the your custom functions goes here section, what I'm doing is I'm grabbing all those PS1 files recursively in that extensions folder, and then I'm just looping through those and just dot sourcing them. And I'm writing to the log to show that those extensions were loaded. So instead of adding new function within this right here, I just drop a new function in the folder. All right, so we go back out here. So the files folder now contains the installer for Notepad++. This was automatically copied in here. The support files folder just has some other metadata that came with the application. It was within the staging folder. This is used for other automation that we apply for our applications. One of them, which is retiring applications. So we're able to identify applications that were created, however long ago, and then we can run a function to retire them automatically. And the icon for this application was in here. So that's the application icon.
Hey, Kevin, if you're at a break point here, I would read the questions back to you, but they're a little lengthy. I was going to say maybe you could just peek at the chat for a second.
Sure.
There's a few guys asking specific to what you're doing now. Scott had a question there. Let me see if I can find that one. There's some chatter going on, so it's a little farther up the tree here. Uh, where did Scott's question go? Jeez.
So I think one of the questions that Scott said there, Kevin, was are you typically running the exe or you're calling the deploy.ps1 itself raw?
So within SCCM, I am calling the exe. When I am doing my development for the application, I'm just calling the PS1. And I'm doing that because then I can see within the console all of the output that the script is producing.
Okay. So you don't do it for any particular reason other than it's just easier to call an exe in the SCCM versus calling a PS1.
Well, you can call the PS1, but it is easier to call the exe within SCCM because when you run an install command, the employee application exe supports the same parameters as the employee application PS1 file. It just sends those parameters to the script. The advantage to using the exe is it does not pop up a PowerShell console when it's installing.
Okay.
So that's really the advantage. So that gives it the seamless installation where you just see the pop-up of, hey, we're installing this application, instead of seeing here's a PowerShell window in the background while this installs.
Gotcha. Does anybody else have any other questions? I'm trying to read back through these and I didn't take a good snapshot.
No,
But
no, it's so
let's keep
this.
on going.
Yeah, it's just some comments about stuff.
Thanks, Kevin. Keep going.
All right, I was looking through those questions to see if I can see anything in here that stands out.
And we want to encourage our members. If you want to ask a question to Kevin, feel free to open up your mic and just ask directly. Sometimes a little easier than trying to find the questions in the chat.
Let's see. For this one question from David, are SCCM packages going away soon? They were only available in the last version as a backward compatibility item. We stopped allowing any new packages 2 years ago, and now force every app team to create an application SCCM. I'm using application and package interchangeably. Within SCCM, there's two different types of packages. There's a package and an application. we rarely use applications within SCCM unless we're pushing setting a configuration that does not really need a detection method associated with it. So yes, we pretty much only for applications. From SEO standpoint, we're using applications, but um, yeah, I'm using those two terms interchangeably, kind of like say
Okay.
SCCM versus MECM.
Yeah, some of the things you were mentioning, applications in SCCM, you can have the supersedence and you can say, okay, every place you installed this old version, put the new one in. And it's just a
Correct.
matter of
Yes.
changing the, source folder and it takes care of it for you
Right.
pretty automatically. So you don't need to do a whole new package or anything. You just need to put the new source files out there. And then SCCM has the interface for the application to say upgrade it.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. Were there any other questions that kind of stood out? I'm totally happy to answer anything.
Oh, I think we're doing pretty good. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Where were we? All right. So support files, I just kind of showed you that. We talked about the exe file, how that's being called through SCCM. In this talk, I'm talking about SCCM some, but really what I'm trying to drive here is the app deploy toolkit and itself, but I am relating it to SCCM. All right, so if I open up the deploy application PS1 file that got created with this application, let me scroll down in here a little ways, and you notice that this section here, variable declarations, already has the app vendor, the app name, the version, the script date and time it was created, and the script author. Additionally, there is some custom code in here that I have for my toolkit. So like this section here is not part of the default toolkit logic. My exit presenting, I mentioned that before. And this is also another function I have in my extensions. This will set a registry key that about this installation, and what that's useful for is if I need to add additional detection method or logic, I can go look at that key to see if this ran. Right, and so you have a pre-installation section where you can add pre-installation code. Installation tab code will go here. Then you have post-installation code you would add here for any kind of cleanup you wouldn't need for that application. Uh, then there's a sections for uninstallations, and there's sections for repair. So you can actually call these as well, and they all have their own pre, during, and post sections you can add custom code to. So the installations to install, in this case, Notepad++, it's not here. I have to go add that logic in here.
Kevin, got two interesting questions. Hoping hoping I'm hitting you at a good point to interrupt you here. So a while back, Scott had asked if you could give a little deeper explanation on deferrals in the context of SCCM. He says here, by default, the app model in SCCM reevaluates every 7 days. So does a deferment automatically mean 1 week? And is there a workaround for something like that?
Um, I'm trying to think. After you put a deferral, SCCM will try doing the installation again. Um, I'm not sure how long it. I'm not sure what the time frame is between retries. So I can't. I'm not too sure. I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Okay. So
Kevin?
just as a general rule of thumb, are you guys concerned with deferrals, or you're like, we know it's queued up, they're going to get it eventually?
Yeah, they're gonna get it eventually. The
Yeah.
reason we do deferrals is so if I work for an engineering firm, So we have engineers working in AutoCAD, big programs, big projects, big files, and if they get a prompt that, oh, you need this new version of this, or you need this new application we're deploying, um, it's going to close your AutoCAD product. You have the option there to defer it. And usually we give them 3 deferments. So the next time the application runs again, they'll have 2 more, then 1. And that gives them, and hopefully by that time, they're like, okay, you know what, let me go ahead and save everything, close and let it do its thing because I was warned this is coming and it's going to install. So I'm not really worried about deferments because we know that once their deferments are up and gone, they don't have any choice but to accept the installation.
And what kind of scale are you dealing with for uh, employees and app deployments? Like, I'm assuming because of what you said, not worried about the firms and stuff like that. Like, you probably have lots of packages going out to lots of people, and so you can't be worried about deferments on an individual basis as much.
Right. We have we have around 4,000 users.
Yeah, so that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then one of the guys was watching what you were doing here and was very curious. You don't have to do it now, but at some point, be curious to talk through how your exit, if presenting, uh, leg there worked. And
Sure.
the I guess they were interested in the source code behind that and how that detects.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to show that to you. Um, let me come back to that. And if you could remind
Absolutely.
me if I forget, I would appreciate it. All right, so I think that's everything here. I did forget to mention, I did want to say that this code, or sorry, these values are automatically added to the script using token replacement. So the default template I use, I have a string in these values, and my script will just replace those values with these uh, whatever these are for these variables. So I also use token replacements in other areas in the script. I'm going to get to that as well. I'll show you that to you. I think I can close that. Where was I? We'll go down here. We'll do the chocolatey example now. All right, so I'm running this now. I'm using the type for the application chocolatey. The version is 000. This is required for a chocolatey package because a chocolatey package always installs the latest version, and so we just do this. And with the SCCM, we can go in there and just hide the version number, or just instead of a number, we can say latest instead. I'm skipping the verify and skipping the configuration manager steps, but also notice there's no staging folder in this run because there's no content for me to tell it to set up because we're pulling it down from Chocolatey. So I'll run that and then I'll show you the folder for that. So it's a little bit faster. Again, and copy it down locally. So I'm just doing that. I'm just pulling it down from our source content location where we keep all of our packages. And as long as it behaves, it should open up. Just a minute. All right, so notice that the name is vendor, the application name, and now the version is 000. And this is a PC, C for chocolate, so we can identify the type of application based on the naming convention of the folder. The files are empty because there's nothing to install within the content itself. So I'm going to jump down to the deploy application PS1 file and scroll back up to the variable declarations. So you can see this is all similar to what it was before in the other application. Everything else here is the same, all the custom logic. But now there is some new code here: perform pre-installation tasks, install Chocolatey. First thing it's going to do is going to run this extension function that I wrote to install Chocolatey itself. And what this is doing, it's installing Chocolatey or updating Chocolatey if there's a new version. And then the installation tasks is going to uh, um, uh, this code here is automatically here. Install Choco package. And behind the scenes, this is just running Choco install Notepad++ with whatever parameters. And then pre-installation, pre-uninstallation. We're installing Chocolatey, and then uninstall Choco package is the custom function. And then repair, similar, but repair it's going to run the -force command within the install Choco package command. And what this means is basically if it's already installed, it's going to reinstall. It's going to force a reinstall of that application.
So at that point, the repair and the install and all that is kind of like those functions that you can call as other parts, and then you're writing your own code to repair the action. So if you wanted to do other work, you would just add it to that section of the code of
Correct.
the deployed application.
Right.
And then the same thing with an install if you want to do that. And there's that pre-installation phase, the post-installation. And so you're kind of doing that all here at the stage. It's like if we're going to do a repair, you'd add that automatically and it would do that for you. So it's kind of
Right.
pre-canned in this format.
Right. So within SCCM, you can deploy a installation, a uninstallation, and within the installation, you can give users the option to repair an application. So to free up manpower with our service desk, if we have the logic to repair an application, we can add that here, and the users can run it. When they do that, SCCM will call this deploy application PS1 with the parameters install type repair, and it'll just run through all the repair sections within the script. The installation sections, the pre-installation sections, the uninstall sections, those are all skipped. They're not used.
Yeah, but
That's
only
why
in the
it's all
repair stage. Yeah.
right. Yeah, it's all they're all separated.
Okay. So another question from the chat is talking about the reporting and logging and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit about, how you guys manage some of those logs and where things go and all that?
So yes, so by default, the logs for toolkit installations get copied or sent to C Windows logs application folder. So let me just show you. The Windows logs software for system installations. If you are running this in the user context, it's going to go to C program data instead. So that's something that you got to be mindful of, because if you're looking for the log and your deployed application in the user context, you're not going to find it here, which has been frustrating for when I was trying to figure some of that stuff out before. So it creates a log for each installation. You'll see this. It was the default log that when I ran it on my computer earlier on in this demonstration, it created this log. Let's go ahead and find a. Okay, so we're deploying PowerShell as a Chocolatey package. So let me just open that using cmtrace, and you can see all the sections. Let me go to the last one, because this is the way I have my detection method set up for this. This will automatically reinstall PowerShell 7 whenever it detects a new version. Right, so installation, initialization, and we'll start there. So the logs are pretty robust. You can see here where I was mentioning where my extensions write to the log that the extension is loaded. So I can see my extensions being loaded. And this is all within the initialization section of this script of the PS app deploy toolkit. And then execution section.
So if you're using CM Trace, it's a very, resource because it'll put the logs in the right format so that you can, look in this
Right.
nice GUI, but you can
Yes,
write to other logs in that form, right?
exactly. You can, and definitely would not recommend reading these logs within Notepad because it's just awful to read. So yeah, it does. CM Trace is definitely a great tool for viewing logs. And we deploy CM Trace is built in or deployed to all of our computers, and we also set CM Trace as the default viewer on all of our computers. So our pre-installation section, go down here. We can see Chocolatey. This is the install Chocolatey function that I was showing you. This says Chocolatey is already installed, so it's not going to try reinstalling it. Check for upgrade, Chocolatey PowerShell core upgrade available. So this is showing that it's going to upgrade PowerShell 7 from 7.3.6 to 7.3.7, and then performing installation. And then you can see this is the command that actually gets ran behind the scenes: Choco upgrade PowerShell core -y, and then it will exit the the script, and the log ends right there. And you can add to the log file within the toolkit. There's a write log function that you can add here, and write your own log entries as well, which is what you're seeing within the chocolatey sections here.
All right. Thank you. Keep on going.
Um, all right, so that was a chocolatey WIM. So I showed you the image for the WIM file that gets created when I ran that. So I'm not gonna run this. I'm not gonna run this live because I can't suppress this without uh, modifying my module, building it, and then deploying it. So I didn't want to go through all that. So I just did a screenshot instead. All right, so let me open up the folder for that. So this one, I named it separate, WIM Notepad, because I wanted to differentiate it between just regular Notepad. So within my files folder, so instead of the exe, now I have a WIM file, and I can mount this, and then within the WIM file is the installation. So for one file, we would not WIM it. Well, I'm just showing this as an example. If we were deploying Autodesk, that typically will have 10 gigs of content, hundreds, if not thousands, of files, and it's significantly faster to copy one large file than a bunch of little files. And when I mean copy it, we have to copy it down to the local computer to do the installation. So we create a WIM package to streamline that and speed up the whole process, and the user experience is a lot better. Right, so let me open up the deploy application, PS1 for this one. I'm going to scroll up to installation section. And now that custom function shows up here automatically, mount WIM file with the package. And this is the directory where that WIM file is located. Installation section, we would have to add our own installation code for this application. And then the post installation task will run after installation to dismount the WIM file. The mount WIM file also does a dismount if there is a previous mount. So if the application failed to install and the script exits and it runs again, it will do a pre-check and do a cleanup and basically just run the dismount WIM file before it attempts to mount it. But in most cases, this works really well for us. Uninstallation section, same here. This is automatically here. Let's see, uninstallation, host uninstallation, dismount. Well, there should be a mount here. It's not showing up, so I may have to fix that. And we don't have anything here for repair. I'll show you do. Yeah, for repair, you have this dismount and I'm sorry, wait, sorry, I'm getting confused. Sorry about that. Pre-repair has the mount WIM file, and let me go back to the uninstallation. Pre-uninstallation has the mount WIM file package, WIM file. So it is there. Sorry, I was looking the wrong location for that. So, right. Excuse me. And within the toolkit, if I wanted to run the installation within that install section, I would just copy this code, execute process instead of the execute process, the path, and then the parameters for that. All right, so let me jump over to my VM. Are we good on time, or should I speed things up here?
No, keep going. I like what you're doing.
All right. Let me just go my VM here. And we're going to install Notepad++. I already have the content copied here, ready to go. One's a regular application, 8.5.7, and one is going to be a Chocolatey installation. As long as everything goes well. Let me just copy that to my clipboard. Go back here and run the installation for 8.5.7. This is actually going to do the install. Again, to do my testing for this, I always run PowerShell in the system context, which is how it would install if we're installing it from SCCM. And then it completed. Let's confirm it's there. And we see it's there now. And within the toolkit, I think I have it loaded here. You can actually use all the toolkit functions within the PowerShell terminal or console. So if I wanted to just verify installed, I can run get installed application name, and we'll say Notepad, and I'll just do a match for that. And it found that it's installed where it's installed at, and you can actually run this function within the toolkit itself. So if you want to do like a pre-installation to see if, hey, does this file installed before I continue on, you can run that there. All right, so we see that. So let's go ahead and uninstall it. Same command. We're going to change the deployment type from install to uninstall. And all this gets written to a different log, an uninstall log. And just like that, if I do get install application, Notepad, it's gone, no longer there. So it uninstalled it. So let's demonstrate the Chocolatey. All right, so I'm going to run the Chocolatey package or Chocolatey application for Notepad++. Running through it, and you can see it's showing the Chocolatey command or output in the console. And it should be installed now. So let's do get installed application, Notepad, and there it is. And now let's use Chocolate to uninstall it. So for certain applications, we are starting to use this chocolatey method because our security team will often say, hey, there's a new update for Adobe that's critical for us for security, or Zoom, or whatever third-party application. So by leveraging chocolatey and leveraging SCCM detection methods, we can basically set it in a way where our SCCM detection method will detect if there's a new version in the chocolatey repository. Then it indicates that it's no longer installed. It triggers the SCCM on the computer to kick off an installation. It does the installation, pulls it down from updates it from the chocolate repository, and that will satisfy the detection method. So it's a neat way to basically create an application in SCCM and just forget it, let it do its thing. All right, so that uninstalled. Let's check it. Get installed application, Notepad, and hey, it's still there. Look at that. That's not good. Let's do get Choco list. See what's going on here. So it's hanging on there. So I'm not sure why that is. I did notice that Notepad++ was misbehaving earlier when I was testing this out. So it might be something within Notepad++ from Chocolatey itself. It's uninstalled. I'm not sure. But for most other cases, this works with our other applications that we deploy using this. All right, so I'll go ahead and show you. I'll show you my function, the new EXP CM application that I was running before. This is my.
You'll also have the request to show the exit if presenting function too.
Certainly. Let's do that first. Yeah, we can get here. Apple Toolkit extensions. All right, so exit if presenting. So I don't have help in this one. I do need to add help to several of my extensions. Not all of them have it. So first thing I'm doing is I'm adding this to my begin block. This is within all the other toolkit functions. So I add this here, so it makes the logging experience a little bit nicer. So within the log, you'll see the location where the log came from. In this case, the exit if presenting. So I have two other functions. Test MS Teams or test PowerPoint. I also have a function for Zoom, and I must not have updated this to reflect that, but I do have that in here. But let's just go and look at that. So if either of these return true, it's going to return that a presentation was detected, and then we're just going to exit right here and send this exit code. And that's this happens in the pre-installation task area. So the user never sees even the banner or the Toastman notification that an installation was started. So if I look at these functions, test MS Teams, there's help in there. Basically, within the toolkit, there is a function. So we can find it. function to get the title of all the windows on that's running all from all the processes, and it's checking the processes to see what if these processes are running based on these different names, this regular expression. And the reason this is different, as Teams has kind of changed, there's different process names have noticed. All right, let's see here.
I think in short, what you're saying is that it's loading, it's basically detecting what the title of the running applications are of the windows themselves.
Correct. I'm trying to see where
So
that.
you're doing that for Teams, you're doing that for Zoom, and are you doing it for anything else? But that kind of stuff. So just
Right.
the titles.
Right. So first we're checking this. First we're checking for the process. See if it's running in the first place. If it's running in the first place, then we're going to get the Windows titles for Teams in this case. So the function get window title is a built-in function to the toolkit. It's not an exposed function that you would see in the help. It's within the PS1 main function script, but you can still use it even though it's not exposed. And let's see what is this doing. Getting all the windows that match Microsoft Teams. Also checking that where in that case the parent process matches the regular expression. If the Teams window is found, if we're going to see this title, Teams is let's see. This indicates that it detected that Teams has a window with the title, and all right, then we're looping through. I'm trying to go through my code here to remember all this.
Well, even to this point, seeing somebody else, I was going to get to that point. If somebody asks, are you able to share the extensions that you're currently using today? Is it somewhere you can put online or even share with us and we can put it up on our GitHub or whatever?
Yeah, I can. These extensions, most of these extensions, I could definitely share these. Now, I will say for Teams, for the Windows title method, the last, I would say maybe a couple weeks ago, I noticed that it was broken because Microsoft changed the title for their Teams whenever you're in a presentation. So I had to come back in here and make some modifications to it to do that. Basically, what it was, the Windows title, if you're presenting, is there's two titles that are the same, and if there's two more titles that are the same, that indicates most likely you're presenting. So therefore, this whole function will return true that you're in a presentation. And I might be able to show that.
So I think, it comes down to, hey, you're happy to share the extensions that currently there, but there's no warranty or anything. So if it doesn't work, don't come talking to me. Look at the code and fix it yourself.
Well,
Yes.
if you find a problem in the code, please come tell me because I want to fix for me too.
Amen.
All right, so let me do this real quick here. I'm just trying to. I'm looking to load the main function here. Oh, my tab's not working. I'm actually going to load app deploy toolkit main PS1 file so I have access to all the functionality within it. And this is something I do often to when I'm doing testing with when I'm developing a deploying a new application. So it was get window title, right? Or the window title, window title. Okay, get window title, and I want to do I'm going to get all window titles. And I'll run that, and this basically outputs all the titles that are windows that are on my computer, parent process, and so I would probably look for sharing control bar means I'm presenting. So if I see if this is present, then most likely in a presentation, and then I can skip I can exit the installation if the user is presenting. All right, so where?
Are you logging the results of that query someplace so you can have a trail of why it didn't get installed?
Yeah, that runs here,
Okay, I see it. Thanks.
and I'm checking here. I'm checking. Um, so actually, I can run this too. I can do test MS Teams, and it should return false. Okay. So that means there is a change, so that is not working like it should. All right, so we're catching this live. So I'll have to look at that, fix it, and then before I share it, I'll fix that out, and then Phil, I'll get with you, and I'll see what's the best method for sharing some of these extensions.
Sounds like a plan. All right, want to try and wrap it up?
Certainly. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. Um, I'll show you that function real quick here. I'll go through it pretty quickly. My new EXVCM application. Uh, First, I go through a whole bunch of parameter validations with using parameter sets, validate all the input, make sure everything is as it should be. Let's go down pretty quickly here. I am then testing other validations that I can't easily do with parameter validations. So I'm doing those things here. I think the big thing I really want to show within this whole thing is the token replacements. So what I'm doing is I'm loading the toolkit, my default toolkit PS1 file, and then I am replacing these string values, tokens with whatever the vendor is. In this case, the vendor name, the version, the date, and then the author for the script author. Then I have similar token replacements for if it's a WIM file, replace this with the logic for the pre-installation, post-installation, um, the uninstallation sections, and as well as a repair. And then if it's not a WIM application, and we're just taking those tokens and just replacing them with nothing at all. It's basically removing them. And then same for my Chocolatey, which actually has some additional code in there for all three sections. That's the big part. And then I go have my configuration manager steps where I'm actually creating the application, creating the deployment type, moving the application to the proper folder within SCCM, and then I do have a parameter. If it's an Intune application, all this does is create the Intune application file for us to use. We don't use this very often. We're pretty much a SCCM shop. And then when we're all done, it's going to just do cleanup and delete the staging folder if we are not keeping it. So in a nutshell, that's what this whole function does. All right. So were there any other questions?
No, I think that's been pretty good. I think you did a great job there, and I thank you for presenting, Kevin. I think there've been some good dialogue in the chat. We've answered a bunch of questions. We brought some questions up to the community, and I'll get with you in a couple days or whenever you're ready to share that code, and then I'll post it up on our GitHub if that's where you want it, or if you found a different place to put it, we can make it available for everybody, and we'll post that.
All right, that sounds good.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Kevin, if nothing else, it certainly was thorough and very deep. I thought you did a really great job showing off the things and were able to explain all the points with sufficient detail that anybody could follow along. So great job, man. Really enjoyed that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
Uh,
And if anybody has any other questions, but we'll wrap up for tonight. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, so we're going to say goodnight to the people that are watching from home. If you are watching at home on YouTube and you want to join us in person, you can check out rtpsug.com or find us on Meetup. The great thing about coming in person is you get to ask the questions that we talk about in the demos, and so we'd love to have you at the next one. And while you're at it, check out our YouTube channel. We have about 125 videos on everything PowerShell, and so there's going to be something there for you. With that, we would like to say a big thank you to Kevin and hope everybody enjoyed themselves tonight. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.